You meant.
Well, right, not from Congress.
Not go away from the planet.
But the question, I think, for Democrats will be, if we retake the House in 2018, there will be pressure that she remain in her position because we will have come back into power. But you have heard multiple Democrats, not just Seth Moulton, but others, on the record say it's time for her to go. That would have been inconceivable a year ago. Her power has definitely waned.
And that's brave because she controls so much money. And we all know in politics that you need a bunch of money in order to get anything done. That's definitely true. As far as this actual story, though, that we're talking about with Conyers, I really think that it's up to his employers to decide, and his employers are the people and the voters. And I wonder if that's where he felt a lot of pressure, if it was coming from phone calls to his office and that sort of thing. And maybe that's the litmus test that's fair across parties, is you say your employer, or across the planet, your employer decides it's time for you to go from a workplace.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
It may be the texture, too, of the complaints, Katie. I mean, they were mounting, and you had another person come forth just in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, engaging in that type of activity in church is definitely not the best place to do it, even though you shouldn't be doing it anywhere. But going back to Nancy Pelosi, as you said, the pressure to keep her in is definitely going to be there if Democrats win some seats, because she raises a lot of the money, and she decides who's going to get that money. And she's in charge of telling the people in charge of the committees who are allocating funds to candidates and to their campaigns how much money they're going to get based on their loyalty. But when you go back to her first initial reaction to the Conyers, the Conyers situation, saying that he was an icon and she didn't know who these women were, and therefore she's not sure if she believes them, and then backtracking and saying she actually believes one of them, it really was a default to the status quo that we have heard from Nancy Pelosi for 2 decades. And on both sides of the aisle, you've seen in recent years, in the last 8 years, this reckoning of anti-establishment politics, whether it's on the left or the right.
Well, and the man we have in the White House right now, anti-establishment politics and the thirst for something different.
And then 2010 turnover of the House to Republicans on the Tea Party wave. I mean, that was a big part of that.
So, Dan, are we looking at the tipping point? Because I think we've all kind of been, oh my goodness, with each one that comes forth. You know, you had Al Franken. There are calls, renewed calls, by the way, outside of the state of Minnesota, because legislative leadership there is still backing him, Al Franken. But there are calls for him to leave as well. Where do you stand on all this?
Well, don't you find this a little bit odd that the Democrats only pushed for Conyers to leave, knowing that it's a safe seat, and after Conyers, who seems to think this is a monarchy and he's passing the secession down to his son, it's a safe seat. So now all of a sudden he was an icon last week, according to Nancy Pelosi. Now they're like, oh no, you need to go. But on Franken, in a swingy state, Minnesota, mildly swingy, in a Senate seat they could lose, all of a sudden everybody's in full force protection mode for Franken. Listen, I'd rather drink rat poison than vote for Democrats. I have zero respect for them. They have zero principle on this stuff at all. I'm sorry. This is not. Yeah, I'm sorry.
The Democrat sitting next to you took that a little harshly.
No, you know I like you, but I would never.
He likes you.
Yes,
everybody else.
I just don't trust them at all. They have no principles on this at all. I'm sorry.
Well, we can talk. We're going to talk about Roy more later.
We're going to do it right now. How about we do it right now?
Go for it, Harry.
Another Fox News alert. And exactly 1 week from today, voters in Alabama will go to the polls for the special Senate election. The RNC now has thrown its support back behind Republican candidate Judge Roy Moore after pulling staff and money just weeks ago. This is one of his accusers is sharing what he calls, or rather what she calls, evidence that she dated Moore when she was 17 years old and he was 34. She told the Washington Post she found a storage bin in her attic that she'd forgotten about. Inside that storage bin, a scrapbook with a card Moore gave her when she graduated high school, and notes that she'd written detailing time she spent with him. She tells the Post she wants Moore to stop calling his accusers liars. He continues to deny the claims against him, speaking out in a radio interview just yesterday. Listen.
What they've done to me is not only unforgivable, it's just pure hatred, and it's pure spite, and it's pure evil and wrong. And they have made up stuff that I would never even considered doing. This is the most dirty political race I've ever been in, and I think anybody could be in. So I think the people of Alabama see through it. I think they're coming around, and I think we're going to win. Once this political season is over next Tuesday, it'll be gone. Nothing will ever be said about it.
President Trump endorsed Roy Moore yesterday. Dan?
You know, here's the problem I have, and I want to explain this to Marie, why I feel the way I do. The
Why you think my party is full of
They're
evil?
full of frauds. Yeah, they are. They're just complete frauds. I mean, I'm talking about the establishment people, not the rank and file Democrat voters in America. But here's the issue I have with this. We were told years ago in the Clinton era that morals don't matter. The economy was doing well, and it was under the Clinton years. Nobody denies that. Morals don't matter. What he did in his personal time makes no difference. So now we're in, as Ben Shapiro said in a great piece, we're in the classic prisoner's dilemma. Now morals don't apply to Democrats, but when it's Republicans, Roy Moore should leave immediately. So what are we going to be left with then? A bunch of sexual harassers up in Congress and in the White House who are always Democrats because they don't have to step down. I'm sorry. Until we can agree on a standard set of rules, allegations are made, you leave. I don't blame the people in Alabama one bit for saying, nope, if we're going to do this, our guy's going in.
Oh, I don't know.
Marie?
Can I defend Marie for a second here?
Please, go ahead.
I think that there is a lot of what you just said to go around on both sides. A lot of people are looking out for their political best interests, and it doesn't matter which side of the aisle they're on. Everyone's guilty of doing that right now. It is up to the voter. You listen to the people. You listen to the accusers. You decide for yourself what you believe. And you go into that booth and you vote your conscience. And maybe your conscience cares more about issues than it does about what happened to these women. That's why the booth is secret. You go do your thing. But there is hypocrisy on both sides of the aisle.
So can I bring up one thing, though? Because, and I don't know where Senator John McCain and some others are on this issue now, but early on with this, with Roy Moore, they were talking about the constitutionality of trying to unseat him.
Yeah.
After the Alabamians had their say, because they agreed that constitutionally the voters get the say, and then what happens when you get to the Senate is up then to the Constitution and the senators making a motion. Katie?
Well, I think that would be unwise for Republicans to reverse the decision of the voters in Alabama. This is a choice that they're going to have to make. It's a bad choice, whether it's Doug Jones or Roy Moore. If I lived in Alabama, I wouldn't be voting for either one of them, but I don't. It's not up to me. But I want to go back to what you were saying about the double standard. Yes, this happens on both sides of the aisle, but here's the difference. If you go back to the 2012 presidential election between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama, and you look at the double standard that was held there. For decades, it is true. Republicans have tried to take the high road on the morality issue when it comes to sexual abuse and assault. They have resigned. They have been shamed out of office. Mitt Romney was accused of having binders full of women, right? That was the big controversy surrounding Mitt Romney. And yet at the DNC in 2012, they had a 7-minute long tribute video that called Ted Kennedy a women's rights advocate when he had left a woman to drown in his car. And that is where the frustration is.
So let me
if we're
pick
going
up
to
on Mitt Romney.
then we're going to let our guys be in
I want to
charge.
pick up on Mitt Romney for just a second, because he tweeted about Roy Moore, and this is what he said. Roy Moore is in the U.S. Senate, would be a stain on the GOP and on the nation. Lee Corfman and other victims are courageous heroes. No vote, no majority is worth losing our honor, our integrity.
Look, Mitt Romney, regardless of whether you like his policies or not, is a good person. I think has his morals and principles in the right place. And we can go back to Clarence Thomas, who the GOP supported despite allegations. There are people on both sides. We are having a reckoning in this country with how to deal with sexual assault and sexual harassment. And by saying it's all Democrats or it's all Republicans, we are avoiding the hard conversations about how to deal with it. And we have Republicans like Representative Farenthold, who paid $84,000 in a settlement. Are you calling on him to resign?
Yeah, of course.
Are you calling on Donald Trump to
resign? I have no problem saying that, though. But the Democrats don't.
But the Democrats, I am a Democrat who sits here every week and calls on people like John Conyers to resign.
Yeah, but where's the Marie? You're
where's
not in
Nancy
power
Pelosi?
Right
Took her 2 weeks.
Where's the Senate calling for Al Franken?
Where's the RNC? Where's the RNC calling on Representative Farenthold or Paul Ryan to resign?
I'm sure.
I want to just point out as facts.
I'm not
Roy
sure.
Moore is alleged to have done some things that happened, and he's not in Congress. Al Franken is alleged to have done some things before he got to Congress. I just want to set it straight
in office,
because it's a little different now. As more people have come forward, Al Franken may be in the shadow, as you said, of things that have happened since he's been in office, which changes the game. Do we have time to stick up that response from Roy Moore to Mitt Romney? Either Mitt Romney has lost his courage or he doesn't care about truth anymore. Sad day. America's reawakening was led by Donald Trump, not you, Mitt.
Either we believe women or we don't. And obviously you have to look at every case. You have to look at the facts.
They're all different.
They're all different. Absolutely. But we are at a point in this country where women finally feel like they're being believed. And for politicians like Roy Moore to call them liars, I think that's offensive to
Bill
Dan, I want to give you a quick
and
password.
Democrats.
Calling people liars?
One, the Clarence Thomas was a hit job, so that was total nonsense.
So we don't believe
Secondly,
her?
No, not at all. And I think, as a former investigator, I think you weigh the evidence. I think Roy Moore, the victims are very believable. But I'm tired of Democrat hypocrisy. They're hacks on this. They have no credibility at all. And hypocrisy, yes, on both sides. You're right, Melissa. But it's the degree of hypocrisy that matters. And Democrats are at the top of Kilimanjaro for hypocrisy right now. I'm sorry.
All right, we'll move on. New developments in the
Harris,
House.
up here.
Stand.
Sorry, Harris.
That's okay. I like when my voice sounds like someone else's, especially yours. New developments in the House arrest of one-time Trump campaign chair Paul Manafort. Why the latest revelation could make his case for bail a lot harder. What was uncovered and how much it really means. And the stunning new details about an FBI agent at the center of the investigation into Russia and Hillary Clinton's private email server, secret email server. Why these revelations are raising serious questions about both investigations. Stay close.
Fox News alert, new details about the FBI agent fired from special counsel Robert Mueller's legal team for his anti-Trump texts. Fox News can confirm that Peter Strzok oversaw the Bureau's interviews with ousted National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, who pled guilty last week to lying to the FBI. He's also the one who changed former FBI Director James Comey's early draft language about Hillary Clinton's actions regarding her private email server from grossly negligent to extremely careless. That language is important because classified materials that have been mishandled for gross negligence calls for criminal consequences. The White House believes these latest revelations raise serious questions about the FBI's objectivity. Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway.
The president has also said that we need an FBI that's objective, and he's very concerned to think that any type of investigation was compromised. The revelation that an FBI agent had to be reassigned or taken out of this particular investigation because he was anti-Trump in his text and had interviewed General Flynn and was more favorable toward Hillary Clinton when she was being questioned. That's very troubling for any American who knows justice should be blind and our FBI should be independent.
And we have this. We are also learning that former Attorney General Loretta Lynch sent a memo in April of 2016 telling DOJ employees to call the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails a matter. Dan, I want to start with you. One detail I'm wondering about, how did they see his text to his girlfriend?
Yeah, that's a good question. And listen, nobody has more credibility on this, than me. I was a Secret Service agent.
Yeah.
And I was interested in politics and resigned. I left my pension, my salary. I'm not looking for a pat on the back. I'm just telling you the truth. You want to be a politician, Peter Strzok? Resign. Now, here's a problem I have with this. This is not an investigation or a special counsel anymore. It's an inquisition. This is a sham. It's a scam. You're being worked. You're being railroaded, the American people. We have an FBI director who initiated the thing by acknowledging he leaked a memo to a reporter. We have a number 2 in the FBI whose wife runs as a Democrat in Virginia as a consigliere of Terry McAuliffe, a Hillary ally. And then we have a deputy director, this guy Strzok, who apparently can't stand Trump and has only been involved in every single prominent case involving Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. This is a total scam for any reasonable person.
Well, and one important detail, too, that goes along with what you're saying, and I say important because we don't know the genesis of it, but from what I'm reading today, this was also the same person sending out those anti-Trump text messages who helped change the language of the investigation and what they were going to call it. That seems significant because, as you pointed out, one is rather benign and just an insult, and the other is potentially criminal.
Well, look, there were hundreds of people involved at the FBI and at DOJ and in the intelligence community working on the Hillary Clinton email investigation. If Jeff Sessions doesn't believe the outcome that they came to with career attorneys at DOJ about prosecution, he can look into it. That's within his purview. Stepping to the Russia investigation, though, because they are two separate things, this is not a scam. This is a very serious issue, and you can roll your eyes and shake your head at me.
It's a scam.
Can I finish what I'm saying, please?
It's a scam.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
For any American, they should be concerned that the Russian government interfered in our election across the party lines. They should be concerned about it. And we should be concerned.
But why do you think that people aren't interested in that? Why can't we hold several thoughts?
Because
I can tell you
why.
why.
Because
at this point, if you look at all of the indictments that have come down as a result of the Mueller investigation. They have to do with Paul Manafort's business dealings.
Mike Flynn is directly related to Russia. His is directly related to Russia.
It has to do with the fact that he lied to the FBI about having a conversation as a transition official.
A totally inappropriate one.
With the Russians and 12 other countries that had anything to do with UN sanctions, and by the way, Russia and their ability to handle ISIS in Syria and Iraq. That is exactly true. He got in trouble for lying to the FBI about that. But I just want to go back to this guy, because we're getting distracted away from the conflict of interest and the corruption. We all thought, Americans thought, which is proven by the fact that Hillary Clinton lost the election she was supposed to win because it was her turn, that she got special treatment at the FBI. Now we have the proof. This guy wasn't just sending text messages to his girlfriend. It was his mistress, who, by the way, also happened to be another FBI attorney. And now this opens up a whole other can of worms that the Justice Department should take a look at, because why is it that Cheryl Mills and Huma Abedin got off after making false statements to the FBI? Why is it that Hillary's entire inner circle got immunity?
But can I step in with just one more thing? And you know, we need to verify what their relationship was inside the FBI. I think sometimes it's unfair to say who was with whom or whatever. But since it's being reported that they had an extramarital, some sort of arrangement, that brings up what even the Secret Service, where you used to work, dealt with it within its own ranks, and that was the ability to bribe somebody based on behavior. Yep. And you have, in your former agency, rules against that sort of thing, because it puts you in a really compromised position.
Iris, don't you find it a little interesting that the entire premise for Sally Yates to approach the White House against Mike Flynn was that they had potential bribable information? That just goes along with exactly what you just said. The investigator had bribable information.
Because he lied about talking to the Russians.
Marie, you just said before that these conversations were inappropriate.
Again.
Didn't Mark Toner take your spot at State Department?
Mark Toner?
Didn't the State Department, the Obama administration spokesperson, he came out and said the conversations weren't inappropriate. So,
Mark Toner had no idea what the conversations was about, to be fair. But let me say, we put sanctions on the Russians to punish them for interfering in our election. Mike Flynn was caught telling the Russians not to worry about that. That is related. I will give it to you.
All right, guys, moving on.
It's all over the place.
All right. New develops in the case against President Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort. A judge has ordered Manafort to prove he did not violate a court order to refrain from public statements. This after Robert Mueller's investigators filed in opposition to Manafort's request for modified bail. They say in court documents he was ghostwriting an op-ed on his work in Ukraine to influence his public image. They say the co-writer is a Russian who they believe has ties to Russian intelligence. Special counsel investigators write in their filing, quote, even if the ghostwritten op-ed were entirely accurate, fair, and balanced, it would be a violation of this court's November 8th order if it had been published. The editorial clearly was undertaken to influence the public's opinion of defendant Manafort. Manafort faces a string of criminal charges, including conspiracy against the United States. He is currently limited to home confinement and is wearing a GPS anklet. So, Dan, why would he do this? Is it stupid? I mean
if you had a list of like 100 things to do while you're under the most intense witch hunt in American history, especially for context with Russia, you don't write an op-ed. Having said that, though, I think you brought up a clear point about this. Yes, bad idea. Stipulated. You guys win. Point stipulated on that. But I still don't get how this is, as we said, Russian collusion in any way. Manafort's charge was all about things that happened before he joined the Trump campaign and some questionable business dealings. There is still, forget about this is the tip of the iceberg. There's no iceberg. This is all a fabrication. So
well, we seem to have evidence that he's colluding with the Russians. I mean,
yes,
Manafort's guilty of a whole bunch of stuff.
Whether it's about the election is another question.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, not the influence.
Yes, but I'm just I want to clarify that I want to make sure everybody knows that we understand he is guilty of a bunch of stuff,
including working with a Russian intelligence-linked officer on an op-ed while under indictment and house arrest.
Yeah, it's really dumb.
Like, if Democrats had done this, your head would be exploding right now.
Listen, I'm not. It was a bad idea.
I think there's a lot of compromise people on both sides. We've seen a lot of weird things going on with Russia. They're definitely trying to penetrate our whole entire system, make us fight with each other, undermine what's going on here. Feels like they're being a little bit successful. But at the same time, it doesn't seem like there's an equality of outcome. I think that's what you're getting at, is that we see some people going to jail on one side, and we see other people who have also lied to the FBI. And I still, as a business person, hate the Uranium One deal. And it doesn't seem like we see people on the other side going to jail for the same thing. Maybe that's one of the points you're making.
Professor Alan Dershowitz, who we know is somebody who loves to weigh in on these things because he looks at the constitutionality so closely. He told me yesterday that this is a case on both sides, and I love that you put it that way, where hope was over the ability to prove or disprove. Hope was over the ability to see reality for what it is on both sides. I mean, people were acting badly on both sides. Why would you write an op-ed like this? Maybe because you hope that this case is going to go on and it's not going to involve you in any way, Mr. Manafort.
Can I just say, having been a federal agent,
Yeah.
I'm really scared of the federal government. And you should be too, having worked in the White House and as a federal agent. No, I mean it. And Marie,
I've worked at the CIA for 6 years, and I'm not scared of the government.
I know a lot of people are afraid of the IRS.
After this Trump-Russia fiasco, where they fabricated an entire narrative to take down a presidency, you should be scared.
We'll see if Paul Manafort puts his computer away.
Because if this was a Democrat, you'd be
Your
going
conspiracy
crazy.
is at like a 10 out of 5.
We gotta go.
Show me the evidence.
Gotta go. Let's see if Paul Manafort puts his computer away so he actually gets out of his house arrest. We will see. It's a big win for President Trump, what the Supreme Court said about his latest travel ban, and reaction from the White House.
Fox News alert now. The Supreme Court is handing a victory to President Trump, allowing his latest travel ban targeting people from 6 Muslim-majority countries to go into full effect, even as legal challenges continue in lower courts. The High Court's action means the ban will now go fully into effect for people from Chad, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen who are seeking to enter the United States. The justices issuing that order by a 7-2 vote, a bigger than margin last time, with Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Sonia Sotomayor casting the dissenting votes. Attorney General Jeff Sessions called the ruling, quote, a substantial victory for the safety and security of the American people, end quote. But Democrats and the ACLU don't like this decision. Congresswoman Rosa DeLario of Connecticut tweeted this: President Trump's anti-Muslim rhetoric and policies have no place in our society, and we must not let tonight's Supreme Court order change that belief. Dan?
I'm so tired of these silly talking points they generate from focus groups and these liberal institutions there. It is not anti-Muslim. If you are Muslim, you are free to come to the United States like anyone else. There's no stipulation that says process to immigrate to the United States for process to immigrate for Muslims. It does not exist. This is a silly talking point. These were states designated by the Obama administration as having significant terrorist problems, and having traveled around the world, even in countries with more sophisticated infrastructures than the one on the list. And I remember on presidential trips where they said, we can't vet this person, we don't have a lot of data on it. You think like the Syrians or the Iranians have like a Department of Motor Vehicle system to vet these people? This was a ground ball decision, and that Hawaii liberal judge screwed up everything. This was a ground ball. I'm glad the Supreme Court stepped in the way.
Marie?
Well, I'm all for vetting. I'm all for vetting people who come to this country. I think part of the reason that people see this as a Muslim ban is put in the context of everything else President Trump has said, both on the campaign trail when he called for a Muslim ban, and just last week tweeting these anti-Muslim videos that got us into a spat with our closest ally in the world. So look, it took 3 tries for them to get it constitutionally. I don't think it will help the president politically necessarily because of all the times that he failed to get it done. But we need, we don't rely on any other country to vet people. We rely on our own vetting for them to come here.
No, that's not true.
That is
no, that's false. That's 100% false. I've actually done it.
So have I.
No, I mean, I've done it when the president's life's at stake, and I'm telling you, it's not true.
We would never rely on the Iranian government to vet people. That's why we have vetting processes.
That's how the sign language interpreter.
It's a double check. They ask the foreign government for information, and then the United States does their double check.
And when you go to those countries who have these governments that are, either under attack or hostile themselves, and you can pick some off that list and put it in either category there. We do need eyes on the ground. We do need people who we consider to be our allies to help us vet some of those people. So there is absolutely some sharing of information. Katie?
Iran is not an ally. This just proves that the president's #1 priority is to keep the country safe. Constitutionally, that is what he is allowed to do. It took them a few times because liberal interest groups got involved, claimed it was a racism issue when really it was about taking the advice from the Obama administration about not having proper vetting in place for a variety of different countries that were overrun by terrorists. So here we are. He has the right to do it, and now he's been confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the list of the countries that we're talking about, it makes it crystal clear what is going on here. I think, to me, based on the fact that these are really dangerous dangerous places where we are seeing so much terror being exported to the rest of the world. Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, Yemen. Look at what has gone on in Yemen just this week.
They're failed
Why aren't
Can I ask a question
Afghanistan or
now?
Pakistan or Saudi Arabia? Why aren't any of those countries
because
on
those
this?
are
Because they have
actually
a
the
different
countries
system.
that have exported terror to this country. So I do have a question about why we don't actually
I do
have a
think people-
one-on-one match between where the terrorists are nesting like scorpions and where it's being exported.
Yes.
Syria notwithstanding.
Well,
Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan.
why there's not a one-to-one match, I can't answer. Maybe it was some kind of political decision to get it through.
Yeah,
but
you can't put Saudi Arabia on this list.
No, you're right. Of course, there's going to be international diplomacy and
But
some
there is a
realpolitik
one-on-one match
involved.
there.
No, there's some
There's a
realpolitik.
difference.
I get
Those
that.
countries, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Afghanistan, actually have functioning governments.
Afghanistan?
Places like
Really? Seriously?
far more functioning than Yemen and Somalia, that's for sure. So, and Libya, for example. So if you look at the
Go ahead, Dan.
governments
But not
of
that
these
Iran
states
has
that
one
they're
thing,
banned,
though,
yeah, because
they're
you said
failed
something that-
states without a government able to do this process.
It's like I'm really bothered by this. Now all of a sudden you're talking about Donald Trump's campaign rhetoric. Okay, so that again a standard that only seems to apply to Trump. So
No.
Obama's campaign rhetoric didn't matter when they passed bill. If you like your plan, you could keep your plan.
Not
but because
at all.
Obama gave
I've
us,
never argued
but
that.
but you're saying because Trump's campaign statement should take into account an illegal ruling. You ever hear of the four corners? It's the bill. It's not what he said during the campaign that matters. Or Obamacare would have
His
never
statements
passed.
have in court been
Well, they
ruled to
shouldn't be.
matter.
Or else
you
Obama
can go
should
to
as
law
well.
school and argue that.
Maybe.
If you want.
Oh, it's Spirited Tuesday. We didn't tell you. President Trump is now stepping up his push to get a tax reform bill sent to his desk by Christmas. But last night, some House Freedom Caucus members nearly derailed a key procedural vote on the Senate side amid concerns about an upcoming spending bill. Can lawmakers get this done before Christmas? We'll talk about it. Stay close. It's warm and fuzzy where we are. The President of the United States is getting set to have lunch with some senators and other invited guests. No doubt on the lunch menu will be tax reform. We understand from the tape playout that we were about to show you from inside the Roosevelt Room that Roy Moore, the candidate for Senate in Alabama, also came up among questions. And of course, we now know that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer will actually meet with the president tomorrow. So maybe he'll be asked about that as well, because remember, they canceled on the president to talk about avoiding a shutdown of the government. The deadline for that this week. So as we head into the White House now, the Roosevelt Room, the president having a lunch with senators. Let's watch.
I appreciate everybody coming in. We had some very late nights getting the tax cut bill to conference, and last night was very smooth, and I think we're going to make it so that it comes out very beautifully. I call it the mixer. It's a conference where everyone gets together and they pick all the good things and get rid of the things they don't like. But it's a fantastic bill for the middle class. It's a fantastic bill for jobs and for companies wanting to bring back massive amounts of money into our country. It's really, I view it more than anything else, as it's a tremendous bill for jobs and for the middle class. And I think people see that, and they're seeing it more and more. And the more they learn about it, the more popular it becomes. And I think the end result will be even better. We had a choice. We could have gone directly for a vote, and we decided that let's put it into the conference and let's come out with something where everything is perfecto. And that's what we're going to do. This group of wonderful Republican senators is here to discuss the tax bill. Very importantly, we're also going to be talking about trade and NAFTA, what's going on with the NAFTA negotiations. We have tremendous losses with Mexico and losses with Canada, and covered by NAFTA. We last year we lost approximately $71 billion in trade deficit. We had a trade deficit with Mexico of $71 billion. With Canada, it was about $17 billion. We have trade deficits with everybody, virtually every country in the world we have trade deficits with, and that's going to be changing. It's already changing, but it's going to be changing fast. We went to China. We brought back over $300 billion worth of contracts from Asia. It was a very successful trip, but now we're going to look at NAFTA very seriously. We have Bob Lighthizer here. We have Gary Cohn, and we're already starting the negotiation. Not easy to have an election coming up, so we'll see how that plays, but it's going to be very successful. So we're going to be talking about trade. We'll be talking about health care. We'll be talking about other subjects. the taxes we're so thrilled about, so popular, and I think something is going to be coming out of conference pretty quickly as opposed to long term. I think it's going to go pretty quickly. We're all on the same page. There's a great spirit in the Republican Party like I've never seen before, like a lot of people have said they've never seen before. They've never seen anything like this, the unity. So I think a lot of very good things are going to happen. It's going to happen very fast. I want to thank you all for being here, and let's have a great lunch, and let's talk about trade, and let's make great trade deals instead of the horrible trade deals that we all got stuck with. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Mr. President, has Mueller crossed a red line with Deutsche Bank? Has Mueller crossed a red line? Mr. President, has Mueller crossed a red line?
Thank you. Thank you. I think he's going to do very well. We don't want to have a liberal Democrat in Alabama, believe me. We want strong borders. We want stopping crime. We want to have the things that we represent, and we certainly don't want to have a liberal Democrat that's controlled by Nancy Pelosi and controlled by Chuck Schumer. We don't want to have that for Alabama.